You ever try to focus, and suddenly your brain's like, hey, maybe I should check my phone real quick. Then you blink, and it's 2 hours later. You've watched 17 videos of raccoons washing grapes, and somehow, you're emotionally invested in them. Man, we live in a crazy world. In a world where everything's screaming for attention. Dopamine's flying around like Oprah. You get a reward. You get a reward. But here's the catch. Every time you give in, your brain gets a little weaker. You're not in control. Your dopamine is driving the car, and it doesn't even have a license. So today, we're talking about how to take your brain back, using one simple trick from neuroscience called self-binding. Don't worry, it's not handcuffs, but it might save your focus, your time, and your sanity.
All right, here's the deal. Your brain's pleasure system, that sweet little chemical called dopamine, was built for survival. Back in the day, it fired up when we found food or shelter or didn't get eaten by a bear. That was a good day. But now, dopamine's hitting every 5 seconds, not from actual rewards, but from the anticipation of them.
Oh yeah, you reach for your phone before you even know why. You open the app before you remember what you wanted to check.
Exactly! Your brain's basically placing bets on pleasure all day long. And that's where we mess up. We think discipline is about willpower, but it ain't. It's about environment. Because when dopamine's running wild, willpower's like a chihuahua barking at a tornado. So what's the fix? You don't fight temptation when it's happening. You block it before it starts. That's self-binding.
Self-binding means you tie your hands before the trouble begins. Like Odysseus. Remember that Greek dude who tied himself to the mast so he wouldn't crash his ship when the sirens sang? Yeah, he was basically the first dude to delete TikTok. Because he knew, the moment you hear the song, it's already over. The second you open Instagram, your brain's like, just one scroll. And now you're studying sea shanties instead of spreadsheets. So instead of relying on self-control in the moment, you set up dopamine fences ahead of time. Barriers that make the bad habits harder to do. American psychiatrist Anna Lembke, in her book Dopamine Nation, explains that our brains work like a seesaw. When we get a hit of pleasure, one side tips up. But here's the thing. Your brain automatically tips the other way toward pain to bring it back to level. That's not a bug, it's a feature. Your brain is trying to maintain balance. But when we repeatedly flood our system with dopamine, scrolling, binging, gaming, shopping, we're tipping that seesaw over and over. The bigger the pleasure spike, the bigger the pain dip that follows. And eventually, the seesaw gets stuck on the pain side. Your brain builds tolerance, and so when we overdo it, the brain stops finding pleasure in anything. Normal stuff, like reading, walking, talking, just feels flat.
So that's why, after a Netflix binge, I feel worse than when I started. My brain's over there trying to balance itself out.
It's like burning out your taste buds. Everything becomes bland. But when you self-bind, when you add a little friction and stop flooding the system, you give your brain time to reset. And here's the thing. This reset takes time. Sometimes weeks, not hours. But when it happens, simple stuff feels good again.
So maybe the answer isn't to get stronger. It's to get smarter. Maybe self-control ain't about fighting cravings. It's about setting traps for your future self. In other words, you really don't need more willpower. You need walls. Because when the dopamine flood comes, it's too late to swim. That's the secret. The people who look disciplined, well, they're just the ones who've hidden their snacks better than you.
Yes. Self-control is about designing your life, so you don't even have to say no to temptation. It's not even an option. Here's how to outsmart your dopamine. 3 self-binding tricks you can test today. Physical self-binding. Put the problem out of reach. Phone in another room, snacks on a high shelf, Netflix logged out. Out of sight, out of scroll. Secondly, chronological self-binding. Set time windows, like I only check socials between 6 and 7 p.m. Over time, you'll find most of your cravings fade before that hour even comes. And finally, categorical self-binding. Separate triggers from habits. No phone in bed, no laptop on the couch. When you change the setting, you change the script. Try one today, just one, and tell me in the comments, what's your biggest dopamine trap? Your phone? Snacks?
Look, you don't have to live like a monk. Dopamine ain't evil, it's just needy. You just gotta make it earn its keep. When you build those fences, you're not limiting your life, you're protecting it. You're teaching your brain to chill. And trust me, once you stop chasing every little buzz, life gets a lot quieter and a lot better. You might even remember where you left your keys.
All right, self-binding, the art of protecting yourself from yourself. You can't out-willpower dopamine, but you sure as hell can outsmart it. If you want to go deeper into this idea, check out Dopamine Nation, Why Our Addiction to Pleasure is Causing Us Pain by Dr. Anna Lembke. That's the book this whole concept came from, and it's a real eye-opener. I mean, this woman basically mapped out the way our brains turned life into a 24-hour candy store. We dropped a link in the description, or you can click the QR code right here on screen. It'll help support our channel by giving us a small commission at no additional cost to you, and supporting Dr. Lembke's amazing work by buying her book. So, if you've ever wondered why fun stopped being fun, that book will tell you exactly why. Remember, you don't have to fight your brain, just bind it a little before it gets you in a bind. Thanks for watching Mindset Matters. Now go out there and give your dopamine a day off.